One of the most common counter-arguments I get when talking about old Aatrox and his rework is the Sion rework, which, despite having similarly drastic changes, tends to be looked at in a much more positive light. Well, just how drastically was Sion changed through his rework? Was it too much? Or was it somehow for the better? We'll have to look at Sion before his rework and see just how well an old Sion player could enjoy playing him afterwards. But you know what else can help you enjoy just playing? Buff Game, the sponsor of this video. Buff is an app featured in Overwolf with more than 4 million users. Buff supports and works with several games you may already be playing, such as League of Legends, Minecraft Hypixel, Valorant, Fortnite, Dota 2, and PUBG. But what does it do? And what do you have to do? Buff earns you buff points while you play games, and you can redeem these points for credit on Steam and Battle.net, as well as Riot points, skins, game keys, Nintendo eShop gift cards, and Google Play gift codes, gaming hardware, and much more. And you don't have to do a thing. Just leave Buff in the background while you play to earn points. Looking at the app, I like how you can find missions for the games you like in order to earn increasingly more points. Myself, of course, I've been going after all the League missions, and it's nice to know that my efforts are being rewarded over time. Also, this month, Buff is doing a giveaway. Up to 10 people watching this video can each receive free RP. To participate, all you have to do is download Buff using the link below and comment on this video with the hashtag #downloadedbuff in order to have a chance of winning $5 worth of Riot points each. Hey, nothing wrong with free RP. Being part of Overwolf, Buff assures you it's safe to use, no resource hogging, mining, or any other funky business. Join Buff for free using the link in the description below, and remember to comment downloaded Buff to join the RP giveaway. Thank you, Buff Game, for sponsoring this video. But now, back to Sion, back in the day. Sion was a bit of a hybrid like many old champions used to be, with AD abilities that affected auto attacks and abilities that dealt damage scaling with ability power, thus why AP is called that in the first place. Speaking of abilities, his passive was Feel No Pain. Its effect was that Sion had a 40% chance to take 30, 40, or 50 reduced damage from basic attacks, scaling with his champion level. His Q, Cryptic Gaze, was a single targeted projectile that dealt 70 to 300 magic damage based on level, scaling with 90% AP, and stunning the target for 1.5 seconds. This projectile was him staring very intensely at you. His W was Death's Caress, shielding him for 10 seconds, equal to 100 to 300 shield health based on level, scaling with 90% AP. The same values and ratio would be used for its second cast that could be used after 4 seconds, or if it ran out of duration, which detonated the shield to deal magic damage to all surrounding enemies. His E was Enrage, a toggleable ability that granted Sion 25 to 65 bonus AD based on ability level at the cost of 6 to 14 health per attack. While it was active, killing a unit would grant Sion 1 to 3 bonus health, doubled against large minions and monsters, as well as champions. His ultimate, Cannibalism, lasted 20 seconds and granted Sion 50 to 100% bonus lifesteal based on ability level, 50% bonus attack speed, as well as healing allies around Sion for 25 to 50% of the damage he dealt with basic attacks. Essentially, an area of effect heal through his lifesteal. While Sion will look very different in terms of abilities between versions, there are some similarities and some much more obvious than others. The W is practically unchanged for Sion, though is maybe the only one to be so clear. After the rework, Sion's kit shifted around quite a bit, with entirely new abilities introduced to complicate the simplicities of the old version while rewarding their execution appropriately. Sion's new passive, or technically passives, is Glory in Death and Death Surge. Glory in Death activates when Sion dies, reanimating after 1.5 seconds with 100% maximum health, rapidly losing 2 to 19 health based on level every 0.264 seconds, increasing by 70% per tick of health loss. During this, Sion's attack speed is set to 1.75, he gains 100% lifesteal, he deals 10% of the target's maximum health bonus physical damage on basic attacks, capped at 75 against non-champions, can move through units, and all of his abilities are replaced with a one-time use ability, Death Surge. Death Surge grants a decaying 67% bonus movement speed over 2.376 seconds. There are things to discuss here relating to old Sion, but let's finish looking at Sion's active abilities first. Sion's Q is Decimating Smash, an active ability that charges for 2 seconds, preparing to smash an area in front of Sion when recast or after 2 seconds. The longer it is charged, the larger the area, and the longer the effects, including up to 1 second knockup time, 2.25 seconds of stun time, and 330 plus 225% AD ratio of physical damage at level 5. It can be interrupted by enemies, which sets the ability cooldown to 2 seconds. If it is charged for less than 1 second, then instead of knocking up and stunning, the axe will swipe at the area, slowing enemies by 50% for 0.25 seconds instead. Sion's W Soul Furnace is like his old W shield in many ways, but now only lasts 6 seconds down from 10, only scales with 40% AP, and only shields a base health of 60 to 160 based on level. The base damage has also gone down to 40 to 140 magic damage instead. However, both of these effects now scale with 10 to 14% of Sion's maximum health based on ability level, helping promote not only a tankier build, but synergy with the new passive on his W, which should be familiar as well. His W passive grants Sion 4 bonus health whenever he kills an enemy or jungle monster, increased to 15 for large units and champion takedowns. Sion's E is Roar of the Slayer, where Sion shouts really loudly in a target direction, shooting a linear projectile, dealing magic damage to the first enemy it hits, and slows them by 40 to 60% based on ability level, for 2.5 seconds. Additionally, it reduces this target's armor by 20% for 4 seconds. If the target is a minion or non-epic monster, they are knocked back in the same direction, which applies this ability's effect and damage to all enemies they pass through. Finally, Sion's new ultimate is Unstoppable Onslaught. Sion becomes immune to crowd control and can move through units, while beginning to charge in a target direction. Movement commands can attempt to steer Sion's charge, but only slowly. Sion's movement speed gradually ramps up to a maximum of 950, and when recast, or when the end of the charge length is reached, Sion slams the ground, slowing surrounding enemies for 3 seconds. When colliding with an enemy champion or recasting very close to enemies, Sion slams directly into them, knocking up and stunning enemies for a total of 0.75 to 2.25 seconds based on how long the ult was. Slamming directly into someone also increases the minimum stun time from 0.25 seconds to 0.75. Also, slamming into a wall stuns Sion briefly as well. In either case, the ability deals between 150 to 450 plus 40% bonus AD minimum physical damage, up to 400 to 1200 plus 80% bonus AD maximum physical damage, based on how long and far Sion had charged. Clearly there are a lot of differences between Sion's iterations, but I don't think it's too hard to see how the old abilities translated to the rework. Sion's passive essentially grants Sion's old ultimate on death, what with the 100% lifesteal, high attack speed, and auto-attacking nature of it. Sion's AP burst playstyle, which uses Q and W to burst enemies combined with long, undodgeable stun time, was now partially transferred to his Q. Now, his Q delivers a huge amount of damage with a huge amount of stun, but must be charged to do it. One of the most annoying things about old AP Sion was that if he was fed enough, he could just walk up to you, literally look at you, and you would probably die. Now, a similar amount and even greater amount of potential damage is available to Sion for bursty playstyles, doubling as a tank playstyle if you choose not to spec into AD or armor penetration. It combos with the shield, and although that doesn't scale with AD, both abilities combo greatly with Sion's ultimate, which has a stun length, if used properly, long enough to guarantee a fully charged Q if not accounting for tenacity. Both the new ultimate and Q do a lot of damage in CC, so I'd say that the burst playstyle is still intact, although now has a lot more room for counterplay and dodging. The new E is like a toned down version of his old Q stun, but without a good damage ratio, its primary use is to slow enemies to help Sion land his Q, while also removing 20% of their armor. This is slightly similar to using Sion's old Q to stun an enemy and then move in with the burst from your shield. It's worth at least mentioning as well that for a more specifically meme-worthy AP build on new Sion, he only has a 40% AP ratio on W and a 55% AP ratio on E, but both are magic damage. It will look more like old Sion with the E projectile and W shield, but will not pack anywhere close to the potential payload of pre-rework, neither in damage nor stun time. I wouldn't recommend it. But what about auto-attack Sion? Sion's primary identity, pre-rework. Do you have to die whenever you feel like playing old Sion again? Unfortunately, kinda. Well, this actually has a name as Int Sion, but as you may know, that doesn't exactly aim to drain tank amidst a teamfight, and it's practically the opposite. With rework Sion, auto-attacking directly contradicts how his new Q, his primary AD damage tool, is supposed to work. You can't auto-attack while charging Q, you can't auto-attack while charging R, and you can't move to get into a position to auto-attack while charging Q. Although the slow from E, R and Q do potentially help you auto-attack a target down, it can hardly be called an optimal style of play, nor is it ever recommended to build for it. Building crit on new Sion only rewards you with a rather hilarious attack animation, but little else. Since his passive attack speed is set rather than increased, you cannot increase your attack speed further with items, and the duration is rather tiny if you don't build any health, further leading players away from building an auto-attack Sion. And finally, his ultimate's AoE healing effect has vanished, completely no longer there. So while AP Sion, which was the more popular build, does live on in the form of AD or Lethality Sion bursting with R and Q, half of Sion's old kit in the form of AD, auto-attacking, lifesteal, drain tank Sion has ceased to be. And yet, this is often considered, from what I've heard, to be one of the best reworks in the game. But why is that? One reason I can think of, and definitely thought at the time, is that the niche of AD, auto-attacking, lifesteal, drain tanks had no shortage of options back then. Though you could argue any champion that auto-attacked had the potential to build Blade of the Ruined King and a Bloodthirster and call themselves AD Sion, I first think of a few champions: Olaf, Warwick, and Aatrox. All three had healing effects on hit either as an ability or innate lifesteal, and all three had high amounts of attack speed with an emphasis on auto-attacking. All three could build for auto-attacks, though Olaf typically didn't build as much pure damage, he gains bonuses based on missing health, so building more health as he did in a way boosted his average attack speed. Sion's main qualities as an auto-attacker were his high AD, attack speed, and lifesteal, the latter two coming from his ultimate, which essentially means dealing damage and healing from auto-attacks in great amounts were key aspects to Sion. Add a kind of stun, and you get even closer. Olaf gains attack speed and lifesteal on his W, like Sion did on his ultimate. The key difference being Sion's abilities to heal allies. Though Olaf doesn't have as big an AD steroid, he does have plenty of reason to buy AD due to good AD ratios on Q and E, allowing for a good amount of drain tanking and outputting very high damage for his W duration and through his true damage E. Warwick, pre-rework, had healing and damage on an on-hit passive. That, though it didn't scale with AD like regular lifesteal, he could still get more use out of it with attack speed steroids, which he had on W, more attack speed, and got plenty of usage out of lifesteal and on-hit items like Blade of the Ruined King on his ultimate. With a powerful point-and-click suppression on his ultimate, he even had a form of easy-to-hit stun to start an engagement. Aatrox, again pre-rework, did a ton of damage and healing purely through auto-attacks on his toggleable W. He had double attack speed steroids, one on his ultimate like Sion, and had a similar drain tanking fantasy to Sion at the press of his R key. With a powerful engage option on his Q which knocked up enemies and a decent poke on his E, Aatrox was in my mind the ideal replacement for an auto-attacking Sion player. However, though Warwick's rework kept healing as part of his identity and improved it, Aatrox's rework near enough removed it and needed an additional rework to get some of that identity back. I have a video on both these champions' reworks, so if you'd like, you can check them out after for more details. So now that leaves auto-attacking Sion players and pre-rework Aatrox players with Olaf and Warwick as alternatives. And even Warwick's rework made Warwick's on-hit healing conditional. As someone who did play old Sion as an AD champion, I don't think either of these truly live up to the AD Sion experience, but other champions usually don't. There will always be missing aspects of a playstyle. Even in AP Sion versus new lethality Sion, some players will have enjoyed the simplicity of old AP Sion and cannot enjoy new Sion to the same degree, even if he's capable of more damage and stun time. Though this can be seen as nitpicky, the big part of Sion still missing in the game is the ability to heal allies through your own lifesteal. Channeling Sion's 100% lifesteal steroid through Ravenous Hydra, which applied lifesteal through its AoE on hit effect, and healing your team with it was maybe a niche, but very fun and rewarding gameplay fantasy. Although it wasn't seen in every game with Sion, not only because people played him AP, it is now something you can't experience, and definitely can't with Sion's rework. So was it a bad rework? To me, I think it was a great rework at the time. Even though they're my favourite playstyle, Drain Tanks had a lot of overlap with each other by just being champions with auto attacks, as most early AD champions were, that had synergy with lifesteal. Appealing to the more popular Sion build while adding more counterplay and effectiveness was probably the right move, as just having lifesteal and attack speed be your thing was extremely generic at the time. Every auto attacker bought Bloodthirster, especially before Blade of the Ruined King was introduced and they started buying that, either instead or in addition. But as Drain Tank champions thinned out with Aatrox being rework and Warwick nowadays building tank, and newer auto attack champions being more complicated, modern day lifesteal champions grow further and further away from the simplicity and the playstyle of old Sion. There really aren't many things left for that niche audience. Even if the rework was objectively good, and I can say I prefer it, I will always feel empathetic for those who did play Sion AD back in the day, as there really aren't many options that live up to that exact style. However, if you aren't too picky, there are still many fairly basic champions that can fulfill similar gameplay fantasies, such as Olaf, Warwick, Nocturne, and even Volibear as examples. Perhaps even better if you're willing to go for a little bit of a funkier build to act out your old Sion dreams. But those are my opinions, and I know it's a controversial rework topic, but that's all the more reason I want to hear from you guys. Are you a fan of Sion post or pre-rework? Would old Sion fit into the game today, or would you like to see a similar ultimate ability on newer champions? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments below. Speaking of old Sion in today's game, I've actually been doing a funny thing where I try building reworks champions like their old counterparts. I've already done this with Urgot, which should be uploaded to the channel already, and with Poppy, which will be uploaded soon. Be sure to follow me on Twitch if you want to see these kind of shenanigans live, as I'll be doing this with Aatrox and Sion fairly soon. Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to AJGBeat91, Light, Awesome Toyota, Nashborn, and OKJ for being channel members. See you guys in the next one.